Thank you all so much for being here. And as you all get settled into the Zoom space, thank you to our students for joining us for our Black Women in Law alumni panel. And of course, thank you so much to our great alumni speakers for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Cassie Petoskey. I use she or they pronouns, and I'm the director of the Waldron Student-Alumni Connections program, where our goal really is to help Weinberg College students explore various career paths through connecting with alumni. And of course, we're really looking forward to today's program, where we'll hear from our great alumni speakers, both about their student experience and what led them to pursue a career in law, along with more about what they're doing in their legal careers today. And of course, we'll save plenty of time for questions from you all. So don't be shy in sending those in. Our student moderators will let you know how that will go, how we'll go about that. And I will be sharing out some information from our alumni on how to contact them or get more information on them in a follow-up email in case you'd like to connect further after the panel. And of course, I always encourage our students to do so. And lastly, before I hand off our session to our great student moderators, Selena, Taj, and Layla, I would love for all of our students on the call today to add your class years and pronouns to your names on Zoom. And also, of course, consider turning on your cameras so our alumni speakers know just a little bit more about who they're chatting with today. So I'm just going to press record and make sure we have access to the great insights shared today. And I'm going to pass it off to Selena to get us started.
Perfect, thank you. So as Casey mentioned, thank you all again for being here for this great alumni program. My name is Selena Ruffin, and I'm a senior in social policy and English literature, as well as the president of the Black Pre-Law Association here at Northwestern. And I'll be moderating the conversation today with Taj Burnett and Layla Nursetti. So yeah, I think I'll just pass it over to the other moderators just to introduce themselves quickly, please.
Hey, I'm Taj Burnett. Like Selena said, I'm sort of the treasurer on the Black Pre-Law Association. I'm a junior here and I'm studying psychology and legal studies. I'm really excited to be moderating this event.
Hi, everyone. I'll be the chat moderator today. My name is Layla and I'm a first year. I'm double majoring in history and French and minoring in legal studies. And I'm also very excited to be here.
Okay, and now without further ado, we have a great lineup of alumni speakers to share their insights with the group today. Once we hear from them for about 40 or so minutes, we will start taking questions from the audience. So feel free to get those ready now. And if you want to turn your mic on to ask your question, please submit your question via the public chat tab, and then we'll call on you. But if you'd like us to read the question, please just send it out to Layla privately in the private chat. And then without further ado, we'll just get started with introducing the panelists. And yes, let me know if you have any questions about how to submit your questions. Just let us know in the chat, and then we'll figure that out for you. But yes, let's get started with introducing the panelists.
Should I start? I can start, I suppose.
Yes, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. My name is Gia Cobb. I graduated from Northwestern in 2002. And after graduation, I went to law school. I went to Harvard Law School. And then I clerked for a year back in Chicago for a judge. And then I became a public defender for a while. And then I was a civil rights attorney for a long time. And I'm currently, and very recently, a judge, a federal judge on the United States District Court for the District of Columbia.
My turn?
Yes, and then Jennifer, if you want to go, yes, please.
Good afternoon, or I guess good morning if everyone's on Central Time. My name is Jennifer Everett. I am a Northwestern University alum who graduated in 2003. My major at the time was political science, international studies, and then a minor in Japanese. After going to undergrad, I actually spent some time in Japan as a translator, and then subsequently applied to law school back here in the Virginia, DC area, where I went to UVA for law school, and have been in the greater DC area since. I am a partner in private practice at a firm called Jones Day. Here I do data privacy and cybersecurity. which means advising clients on data breaches and on the myriad of data privacy laws. If there are any cases or classes that are available, which I don't remember being available at the time when I was in school, on this, what I think is an interesting topic, I encourage everyone to take it and check it out. But it's a pleasure to have everyone here today. And with that, I will turn it over to my co-panelist, Jasmine Richardson, to introduce herself as well.
Thank you, Jennifer. And hello, everyone. Thank you for having us all for this panel. My name is Jasmine Richardson. I am currently a trial attorney in the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division here in Washington, D.C. I am a 2008 graduate of Northwestern University. I majored in political science and international studies. After I graduated, I came to DC, worked for a nonprofit doing development and marketing work for 2 years. And then I went to law school at USC out in LA. And after finishing there, I came right back to DC and started working for a racial justice organization called Advancement Project. I did a fellowship there. Then I started working at the DOJ in 2016 and have been here since. I specifically do voting work here in the Civil Rights Division. So my cases involve challenging election bills or methods of election that we allege, were passed with intentional discrimination or result in discrimination to voters of color. Thank you.
Thank you all. I just want to say again, thank you all for being here. Obviously, very impressive CV. So thank you for taking time out of your days to be here and answer some questions for us. And with that being said, a lot of the questions are just general. So please feel free to hop in whenever you feel like you have an answer or feel like moved by the question. But yeah, the first question that we wanted to start with was just, can you share with us some of the most impactful classes or experiences for you in undergrad, and how that led you to pursue a career in law, or if that motivated you to pursue your specific concentration in law? And anyone can start off.
I can start because I realized I forgot to say my major when I introduced myself. So I was also a political science major. And I think I wanted to be a lawyer before I came to college. So I was pretty set on that career path. But I did think that a lot of the political science classes I took, for example, I remember taking constitutional law that I thought was very interesting. I took a lot of classes in the African American Studies department, sociology classes. I think that there were experiences that I had at Northwestern that had cemented my desire to do public interest work or civil rights work when I was in college. And so certainly the classes that I just named and others in the political science department did. But I also wanted to make sure that everyone knows you don't have to major in political science in order to be a lawyer or go to law school. I know that tends to be, I think all of us did, but that's certainly not a requirement, although I did find a lot of those classes to be very interesting and relate to the things that I ended up doing in my legal career later.
Thank you. Because I think that is something that always kind of becomes a gray area. I guess it's just the idea of the political science major. It's this big hulking question, I think, when you are in undergrad. So yeah, I think I'll just kind of queue up the next person, if that's all right. Jennifer, do you have an answer for a similar question?
I distinctly remember in Northwestern taking a seminar. It was a seminar that was by a professor, maybe an instructor who herself was in private practice in some capacity. I think she was, I don't remember what her job was, but I remember very clearly that the seminar involved us reading case law, and then coming to, we took different sides in terms of coming to a decision. One part of the class were the attorneys for the Supreme Court, and the others were justices. And I pulled a string to be one of the Supreme Court justices to render an opinion, or my opinion, on the cases. And I remember very clearly just being so engaged and saying, this is pretty cool. And from there, I think I was hooked. I didn't take a direct route to go to law school. I took some time off and leveraged my minor in Japanese to go overseas. But I think a couple of things in terms of thinking about school or takeaway, and I will welcome Jasmine's thoughts here as well, is the first of which is, just as Judge Cobb just said, there isn't a one way to get to law school. There are multiple ways to get to law school. But the foolproof way of getting in terms of finding if you're interested is being willing to try something new. Take a class that you might be interested in, take a class you think you might not be interested in, check it out. The worst thing you can do is just rule it out because you don't like it. In that way, that's just having an experience by itself as well. The second thing is, you never know what that class is going to take you in terms of unpacking and unpinning the next thing. So, encouraging you to delve right in. And even if it's not a class that's in college that waves your attention, don't feel like that rules out law school either. Maybe this gets to a question you'll have, but some of us have taken time off and found our way back to law school. So there's multiple ways to get that, whether the class interests you or later work experience as well. But let me stop talking, Jasmine, and welcome any thoughts if you have.
Sure. I think there are actually some classes at Northwestern that can help you with a legal career, but don't have a legal focus. So when I think of the most impactful class, it was my freshman seminar, which had to do with France and what we call Indochine, or an area in Asia that was colonized heavily by the French. And so that, right off the bat doesn't sound like a legal type class, but there was an emphasis on your writing and preparing different memos for our teacher and submitting different writing assignments every week. And I can distinctly remember being so surprised by some of the grades that I got in the beginning. I thought I was an excellent writer. And it turns out I needed to work on a lot of things when it came to my writing skills, less flowery language, be a little more direct. And so I actually think back to that class a lot in my legal career, because writing is a fundamental skill when it comes to the practice of the law. And so surprisingly, I think there will be some classes at Northwestern that you might take that you don't think would contribute to a legal career, but actually can. And that is one I can remember. I don't know if they still do freshman seminars or have such a writing focus, but right now I look back to that class as helping me to get my writing in a good place. And that continues to contribute to my legal career.
Yeah, I definitely think that is something that I can attest to as well. We still do the freshman seminar that are very writing focused, just trying to get you ready for college writing, I think, on the outset. And yeah, I think I had like a similar experience where I was like, I'm a great writer. And then I was in a freshman seminar and I was like, I could be a better writer. So yes, I think it is very, very helpful. I think that is also one of the classes I would probably answer. So then our next question, Jennifer, you kind of teed us up for the question. So if you wouldn't mind answering first, the question is basically, what was your first job out of undergrad and or law school? And how did it impact your career path? And I think that whether you took a gap year or took time off, it might be more salient to go the undergrad path or the law school path. So that also is completely up to you all.
Yeah. And I welcome Jasmine and Judge Cobb's input in this as well, since we've all taken different paths to get to law school. I don't know how many of you may be interested in or have already done a study abroad program. I had Japanese as a minor, and I leveraged going to Japan for a year, my junior year, as a part of, to fulfill my minor and then to get a different experience. That was life-changing to commit to going to a year. And I had a fantastic time, and it's still one of my key memories, particularly going to in college. I actually took the LSAT in Japan and applied to law school in Japan, and accepted at UVA sort of sight unseen, because you can't quite tour law schools from overseas. But I ended up picking well, and from there, maybe took the more traditional sort of private practice route afterwards. So that's, becoming a summer associate at a law firm after my first summer, and then sort of sticking with law firms since then. But this just goes to my point earlier. from a private practice, or even, however you decide to go, if you decide to go direct or take some time off, it really is just what interests you and drives you. I think taking time off in between school can be beneficial in many ways, to give you a different experience, to do something different. I mean, you're in your 20s once, right? To check out different things. It also kind of helps to inform your decision. For example, if you go to law school, maybe you decide to be a patent lawyer, and having sort of, experience in doing patents or engineering, right? You'd be surprised how many of us went to law school, people who were doctors previously, or had entire careers before that, right? And so don't feel, that, things have to go in a particular order. They can, but you could also do something entirely different and still find your way back to law school.
Thank you so much for the information about like a gap year. Because I do think it's kind of one of those things that we don't really discuss as much while we're in undergrad. It just is like a decision that comes up after. So yeah, Justice Cobb, same question. What was your first job out of undergrad or law school, and which is more salient for you is, of course, completely up to you.
Sure. So my first job out of law school was clerking for a judge. I actually clerked in Chicago. Her name is Diane Wood. She's on the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. And that was a really great experience. I went straight through because I didn't know any better. I didn't know or have anyone at that time to give me advice. I didn't know it was an option. I didn't know about deferring, where you can apply, get in, and then tell them you're going to come a year later. I think it's more common now. But I would have done that had I known about it. And I strongly encourage people to do that. I think it is really beneficial to do something else in between college and law school, doing something that you might not have otherwise done, getting things out your system, whatever it is you want to do. I wish I would have known that. When I got to law school, a lot of my classmates had deferred or had taken time off. And I thought that they were more focused than I was. I was still very tired from undergrad. And I thought that they had, there's a rhythm of working that is different from your lives as college students in terms of getting up at a certain time, being productive during work hours. I was very much a night, me and Jennifer were very much night owls at Northwestern. And so I think I would have developed some different habits that would have helped me. So I strongly encourage that. But I did clerk for a judge. So if you do go to law school, that's a great opportunity. I have law clerks now. It's really a good opportunity to kind of see the inner workings of how cases are litigated and decided, building a mentor with a judge, a mentorship relationship with a judge, really honing in on research and writing. And a lot of jobs like to see that experience. Matter of fact, if you go to some law firms, they'll give you a bonus for having clerked. So you actually, make a lot less money than you would at a big law firm, but they want clerks to come to work for them. And so they do compensate you for that experience. So that is something I do recommend if you do go to law school and are looking for something to do afterwards.
Yeah, thank you, Judge Cobb, for the information. I didn't know that as well. Yes, and then finally, Jasmine, just a little bit of information about your first job out of undergrad or law school, or maybe like the most important job out of undergrad or law school.
Sure. So like I said, I worked at a nonprofit around the hill after college and between law school. And while what I did there, I don't do anymore and wasn't exactly what I wanted long-term, I think just working, period, at a job that didn't pay so much, but paid something allowed me to just try out adulting, learning how to pay bills, learning how to balance my time. That type of thing was healthy for learning how to be a professional. And so I found that when I entered, my internships in between first and second year and second and third year, I knew how to be a person in the workplace and a productive person, and how to talk to my supervisor in a direct way, and how to follow up and keep them informed of my progress on projects. Those things you would think come natural, don't necessarily. And those are things that you can practice and really learn in between time between college and law school. And I think simple professional skills were things that I was able to obtain when I worked at this nonprofit before going to law school. And so I look back at that time as good for my own professional development. And I think that was healthy as I was looking at jobs and considering where I wanted to work and being a productive intern in between the first and second year and second and third year of law school. So I do recommend taking some time off in between undergrad and law school. But it's funny, as Judge Cobb was talking, I was thinking, I actually sometimes look back and think maybe I should have gone straight through, because the one drawback I will say is it is hard to go back to school after taking some time off. It's hard to get back into the life of a student, having to go to school every day, classes, that's something you take for granted when you're in it. And once you're out of it, you appreciate that you don't have to do that anymore. So you have to get mentally prepared to go back to being a student if you're going to take some time in between undergrad and law school.
Yes, thank you for the different perspectives about the gap year. I do think, I've kind of already said this, but I do think it's something that doesn't necessarily get discussed during undergrad. It's just something that we decide our senior year, like whether or not to do. So yes, thank you all for the different perspectives. And then Jasmine, I kind of want to follow up. The next question is about something that you learned or did in school that surprised you by how applicable and how much it helped you in your work today. So this is kind of similar to how you discussed like the nonprofit kind of being applicable in your time in law school. So like, is there something that you feel like tracks all the way from like undergrad or even law school, tracks like very directly to your work today?
You're asking, is this something I did in undergrad as well as in between undergrad and law school?
And it can be undergrad specific, like Northwestern specific, but yes, that just like tracks very well onto the work that you're actually doing today.
Absolutely. I think throughout my career from undergrad, the gap year to law school, I always loved politics. I love campaigns. I love, it sounds nerdy, election day, just watching results come in, the dynamics of campaigns. I remember taking urban politics with Professor Ruel Rogers, and there was a emphasis on Newark mayoral campaign between Sharp James and Cory Booker back in the 2000s. And that interested me because I was from New Jersey, familiar with it, but it also was the rigor of campaigns and the ugliness and the energy behind them. And so, I've always been close to elections. I studied political science. I came to DC. I was always, had friends working on Capitol Hill, keeping up with what was going on Capitol Hill. And so I think in the back of my mind, I always knew whatever career I had, particularly my legal career, was going to be invested in elections and politics. And here I am in the voting section of the Civil Rights Division, Department of Justice. So I think I take from that, even though you may not be sure about the specifics of your legal career, if you really think about it, there probably is something that you're always attracted to, you're passionate about, and that will come out as you pursue jobs and look for the right place for you.
Thank you. And Professor Rogers does still teach a similar class, AFAM Politics. So that was so funny that you said that. I was like,
I Googled it before this panel to make sure I had the right title.
That is so funny. Yes. So then Judge Cobb, same question. Is there something that you found from undergrad that tracks like directly onto your work today?
I can't identify anything specifically. Certainly, if you do arts and sciences major, you develop writing skills, which we've talked about, and that's what I do all the time now. So I do think that I developed those building block writing skills. But when I was in college, I knew I wanted to go to law school. I knew I wanted to go to law school before I started college. But I really tried to take things one step at a time. I didn't think about so much what my career as a lawyer would be. I just tried to enjoy the experience and position myself as well as possible to get into law school. And then when I got into law school, that's when I really focused on trying to try things out and figure out what my career might be. I did have and develop an interest in civil rights in college. So that's one thing I would say tracked. I think that's probably where that interest developed through various classes or community service events, or even speakers that would come to campus. So I just try to take advantage of all of that. You're not going to really be in a situation, again, law school, but once you get out of school, you're not in a situation again where you have access to everything that you have access to when you're in school. I just tried to take advantage of everything that I could and really try to round out my experience in that way.
And again, you all are like definitely like knowing the questions, answering the questions ahead of the time. So this is great. The next question was literally, how do you see arts and science backgrounds playing out in your work? So Jennifer, do you see the arts and science background in a similar way, just through the writing, or is there something else that you think, I guess, again, tracks very well onto your work today? I just saw that Jennifer's not on screen, so my apologies for directing that directly to you. That can be like a broader question also. Anyone can answer just how, I guess, the arts and science background specifically plays into the work in a similar way to how it plays into, like just the undergrad experience overall.
I'll let Jen, I just got finished speaking, so I'll let
Yeah.
Jennifer.
Wait, I'm sorry, did you want to repeat the question once more?
Yes, absolutely. My apologies. So basically, Judge Cobb already knew the question before I even asked it. So it was like a perfect tee up. And I basically just asked how we see arts and science backgrounds play out in you all's work. And it can kind of also be answered by the question about undergrad more specifically, if there's anything that like surprises you by how applicable it is in your work.
I mean, I think we all say it does, right? Yay, Kate. Right? In terms of arts and sciences, I mean, that's the department I was in, and I think all of us were in, right? And so you see it bore out in your reading skills, your analytic skills, truly the analytic skills, writing, and more writing. And so that's kind of where I think I see it, bore out the most. I guess I do want to, again, just sort of emphasize, and perhaps Judge Cobb and Jasmine already have done so, that it's not the only way for law school. I feel like I have a theme. We have so many engineers, right? If you are interested in IP work or anything else as their background, chemical engineers, you could be in an entirely different space that has nothing to do with reading and writing as a baseline, and find yourself in law school. Like I said, the medical practice is also a classic example. Those experiences actually help to color what you're interested in what your interests become in law school and afterwards. Just to give a classic example, one of my colleagues has her PhD and was a practicing physician, an ER physician for many years, decided that, in fact, was, I think, running a part of a hospital. And so as a result, she decided, well, not as a result, but she ultimately decided to go back to law school, did that, and now is a practicing attorney in our healthcare practice, and can resonate and understand sort of how healthcare, life sciences works, because she's been on the other end and can speak the language of the clients and understand their needs. So those types of life experiences are critical. But Jasmine, I don't know, I keep speaking over you, so let me just be quiet and turn the mic over to you.
Not at all. And I just keep thinking we're going in exact order, but I have to remember we can just speak up. So when Jennifer said reading, that did remind me that oh gosh, we read a lot at Northwestern. I was supposed to be doing a lot of reading. And so just voluminous reading assignments, I think, can help to prepare you for law school, because there's also a lot of cases that you're going to have to read in a short amount of time, and information you're going to need to take in a short amount of time. So just all of the reading that we did, particularly for Weinberg, across classes, I think helped prepare me for a lot of reading that also needs to be done when you get to law school. It sounds simple, we all love to read. Usually people at Northwestern are a little nerdy and grew up just reading constantly. But reading whatever and different subjects in a short period of time, taking it in, analyzing it, and being able to use whatever analysis for a final exam or a midterm. Those are skills that you will see are helpful for law school as well.
Okay, again, thank you all for those answers. So this next question, I'm kind of gonna make a shift. I know we have like 15 minutes left, so I want to get in as many like questions as possible that I feel like might be like the most applicable. So this next one is about a time when maybe you had to make a pivot in your career, or a time when you had to explore your career options again, specifically after you graduated. And I know that's something that maybe a lot of us on the call have had to deal with, just like during the pandemic, just like pivoting, making changes, and making sure that we're like continuing to make ourselves like the best candidates for whatever it is that we do land on. But I do think this has been like a time of like transformation for like everybody. So yeah, if you guys all have like a time maybe when you did have to make a pivot in your career, how you were able to, I guess, land on your feet, and like maybe what caused the pivot, why you felt like it was probably time for a change or something new. And then we can start with whoever. I know that we've kind of been going in exact order. So Judge Cobb, if you would like to start.
Yeah, I mean, I just made one. I was confirmed as a judge in October of 21, so not even a year.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And so, it's interesting. I've been a trial lawyer. Like I said, I was a public defender in DC. Then I was a civil rights lawyer doing trial and litigation work. And I really loved being a trial lawyer. I loved doing trials. I loved being in the courtroom. I really got a lot of fulfillment out of that and was not necessarily thinking about leaving. But I will say, although I worked very hard, I was a little bit comfortable in the sense that, I did my work and I did it as best as I could. But, I wasn't really pushing myself to see what else was possible. And it really was, I saw that there was a desire to encourage public defenders and civil rights lawyers to be judges, which is not traditionally the backgrounds that federal court judges come from. And I was encouraged to apply. I wasn't going to apply. And that's another advice point is, never take yourself out. It's fine if you don't get something, but don't be the one that takes yourself out. I wasn't going to apply because I didn't think that I would be a competitive candidate. And it turns out I was glad to be proven wrong about that. But, it was a situation in which I was very comfortable in my career. I liked what I was doing, but an opportunity potentially presented itself. And it was the first time in a long time where I actually had to really kind of go back to grinding, and doing something that made me uncomfortable. And I think that that's where the growth comes, kind of, pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, whether that's in your current position, if you're a lawyer, whether it's, taking on a new type of case, other than the cases that are traditionally assigned to you, whether it's pursuing a new legal theory that you've thought of, whether it's writing a book on your own outside of whatever that thing is that you've had in the back of your mind that you wanted to do but didn't think you could do, is like what the pandemic did for me in terms of thinking about pushing myself a little bit beyond the comfort zone. And so and that kind of led me on a path where I was able to pursue this position. But otherwise I had been at my firm for 9 years, which was fine. I would have stayed there and been happy. But I think it's important to kind of constantly reevaluate and reassess what you want out of your career and out of your life, and do things that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes.
Yes, my favorite idea is just that, oh, Jasmine, perfect. My favorite idea is just that growth happens outside of your comfort zone. So yes, I definitely do agree with everything that you said. And thank you for sharing your journey with us. Jasmine, so yeah, perfect.
I was gonna go next and try to shake things up. I would say right now where I am in my career too is a turning point in that, you'll see when you come out of law school, you are a baby attorney or a junior attorney for a longer period than you would think. You are often following your supervisor, or here we have deputies, advice and strategy on cases for a long time. And I'm reaching a point now where I have to step up and lead cases. And that has definitely taken me out of my comfort zone, because it now requires me to be more of a supervisor in some respects, rather than just doing the trial attorney work, which I have come to really enjoy. And that, takes me back to even just my period between college and law school, where I was learning those professional skills, learning how to talk to people, learning to have honest conversations where you think some people need to step up and do different things, or deciding who's going to do what for your team, making strategy calls about your litigation and the stories you want to tell. That's different for me, but that is the period I am in now. I'm no longer can say I'm a baby attorney. I don't know how to do that, or I don't feel comfortable doing that. It's time to step up and lead. And so, similar to what Judge Cobb was saying, turning point is right now in my career, and I'm enjoying it. It's definitely uncomfortable at times, uncomfortable conversations I have, or big decisions I have to make, but it's good for me. And so I appreciate this moment.
I guess I would say from my end, it's sometimes the work. I started as a labor and employment lawyer, then switched over to data privacy and cybersecurity some years back. In this area, just probably like no different than most, but the technology and the privacy laws and cybersecurity laws are ever evolving. There's nothing off the shelf. In fact, quite frankly, sometimes they're not even laws that have been created or analogous to, and so everything is really creative. And I can't say that any one day is the same, whether it's AI technology or whether it's development of new ad tech technology or development of new apps that are used for different reasons. I mean, just think of like just how much healthcare and technology have expanded over COVID, right? I mean, you can see your doctor, which I don't know, it's one of those things, why didn't we do before? But telehealth medicine, for example, why was I going into the doctor's office anyway, many, many years ago, if I could call and just do a consult? Like, why is that phenomenal? Like, why is that a new phenomenon? But it is, right? I mean, necessity creates, how's the saying go? Necessity creates, encourages creativity, I suppose. The point being is, there's so many different ways in which we leverage and use technology and build it out as consumer products that require me to kind of think on my feet. So I hope that answers the question in that respect.
Absolutely, it absolutely does. And so the last two questions, I kind of want to couple them together. We have like 5 minutes left for these questions where I'll be moderating, and then I'll hand it over to Taj to moderate the student questions. But the last two are, what advice do you have for networking within your industry, as well as what do you wish you could tell yourself when you were in these students' shoes? So maybe a little like advice to your undergrad self, specifically in terms of like networking and just putting yourself out there and beginning to get contacts in the legal field maybe early, or going about that, how you would give yourself advice about how to go about that. And yeah, again, we'll try to shake it up this time and start with Jasmine.
Sorry, technical issues. I think, I would honestly tell myself to trust the process, so to say. Things will work out somehow in some way. I left college not completely sure if I wanted to go to law school, not knowing what my career was going to look like. I knew I wanted to be in DC. I wasn't getting all the job offers that my friends were getting. And because I tended to want public service opportunities, those surprisingly are actually harder to get because they're not a lot of them and often don't pay what you would want to. So just leaving Northwestern, proud that I had graduated from Northwestern, but not sure how this was all going to work out. But as I said at the beginning, there will be something that constantly ties you back to what your passions are, and somehow you will get to those careers. And it took a little time for me to figure out how to do that in a public service type route with my legal career. But through a fellowship, I got finally to the Department of Justice, and after 5 years of doing the exact type of work that I wanted to do. So, I often think, should I have done this differently? Should I have gone to law school straight out of college? Should I have waited to get a higher LSAT score and then applied to law school. Maybe, but it all worked out, and I'm here where I want to be and doing the work that I would want to do, and am very fulfilled by the trial work that I get. So trust the process would be something I would tell you all now, and myself in your shoes.
Okay, perfect. And then can we pass it over to Jennifer for, again, like the final thoughts? And I know you have to drop off the call soon. So again, thank you for being here. This was a great experience for me, and I'm sure everybody else on the call. So thank you all so much for being here and for giving so much of your own insight.
Yeah, I guess I would echo Judge Cobb's and Jasmine's sentiments is be bold, be willing to take some risks. That is how you grow. Sometimes I remember being in Northwestern is just such an amazing school. I mean, just people who are coming with so many different experiences, who had scholarships and, you know, academic things, have done all these amazing things, who spend half the day rowing and then come to class, like just, you know, everyone is just dynamo, right? And just sort of being intimidated by, or at least the perception of being intimidated by who was around me. But I guess that my takeaway is, you know, fear not. You deserve a seat at the table. That's why you're there at Northwestern. That's why you've been selected, and you, you know, contribute. Get as much as you can out of your career or out of your college experience. You're paying a lot for it, or someone is. So leverage every piece of it and own up and feel proud that you have a seat at the table there. You deserve it, and just make as much as you can out of it, because Northwestern is just an amazing school, and be proud to be there, and be confident in everything that you do.
Okay, so it's hard to add more to what my co-panelists have said. I think one thing, just on kind of more of a personal note, is to try to get in the habit early of taking really good care of yourself. You know, I think that especially in the legal profession, we all work really hard, and I think I developed my bad sleep habits at Northwestern in terms of not getting sufficient sleep and not making sure that I was doing the things that really kind of prioritized good taking care of yourself habits, self-care habits. And you know, I think when you get older, it'll be clear that you can't run like that forever, and that you can't pour from an empty cup. That's a cliche saying, but it's so true. And if you want to have a rounded, I mean, you can't work all of the time. You have to, you know, prioritize yourself. You have to prioritize your relationships, your friendships. You know, kind of, I would tell myself to develop those good habits so that when you get into the professional field and you're working and you have a demanding job, which if you're going to law, you will have a demanding job, that you've already built those habits and you can make yourself a priority and take care of yourself and not get lost in whatever work you're doing.
Again, I just want to thank you both for being here. Jennifer as well. I know she had to hop off the call, but this was amazing. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for just being in conversation with me. We'll open it up for Taj and student questions quickly. But yeah, I just want to pass it off to Taj and again, say thank you, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Selena. So, you know, we've got a few questions from students who have private messaged me for the panelists. So I guess for the last portion of the event, I'll go through a few of these. You know, of course, if anyone like thinks of a question they would like to ask it like themselves, you know, feel free to unmute, turn your camera on, you can raise your hand in the Zoom. And, you know, if we have time, then maybe I'll call on some other people. So I guess to start with, someone asked, if you could go back to your days at Northwestern, is there anything that you would change or anything that you would have wanted to do differently?
I wouldn't have gone straight to law school. I would have taken time off. I know Jasmine has the opposite regret. So I guess the grass is always greener on the other side. But, you know, luckily in terms of my college experience, I don't have any regrets. I really enjoyed the experience. I love Northwestern. I made lifelong friends. I have contact with some of my professors that I had. still to this day. So I don't have any regrets or things I would do different. And I actually try to live my life where I let go of any regrets I have and not hold on to them. So, you know, it's crazy. It's been 20 years and since I graduated. And, you know, if I were holding on to a regret that long, I would not be happy about that. So my only thing that sometimes I wish is that I would have taken some time off.
As similar, I don't regret anything. The mistakes made, not studying maybe when I should have been, it all worked out. It's fine. I studied, I think, just the right amount. Sprinkled in Norris parties from time to time, and that's healthy too. There are things that, you know, at Northwestern that will distract you, but I think they actually ended up being positive distractions because similar to what Judge Cobb said, I made lifelong friends that I still text. One, I told them about this panel right before. My sorority sister, I told her right before I jumped on this panel. Made friends that are like family still to this day. So no, I don't have any regrets. Northwestern was one of the best things that happened to me.
No, that's really great to hear. I guess more like a more uplifting note, like what would you say is like one of your highlights of your career thus far?
Should I do that first?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think I think my career highlights come down to cases that I've litigated when I was in private practice, because I was a civil rights lawyer and I've had trials where I've represented people who were discriminated against and we get a jury verdict, and there's really nothing that's more rewarding and fulfilling than kind of going through a journey with someone who's in my field was discriminated against, and to see them get that validation from a jury, an acknowledgement that something wrong happened, and to have them made whole. I mean, those have been my career highlights. Those moments. So, you know, and I'm, like I said, in my current career, I'm very new, so that stage of life is to be determined. But I still, you know, when I think about kind of the high points of what it was to be a lawyer, I really think back to my work as a civil rights attorney.
I think one of the high points was last year in June of 2021. So you'll see if you do become an attorney, it sounds minor, but it's a big deal when you sign your name to the pleadings, especially when you sign a complaint, which is the initiating document for a lawsuit. Our Department of Justice sued the state of Georgia, challenging an election bill that it recently passed. And my name was on the complaint. And, you know, I sent it to my mom. That was a big deal for professionally. Because we worked hard to get things in order to be able to file that lawsuit on behalf of the Department of Justice. And so that was a big point in my career. It's just a turning point for you professionally when you start signing the pleadings, because you're taking more of a lead effort in the litigation itself.
No, absolutely. I guess next question is, were there any specific instances where you were heavily aware of being Black in the legal world?
Yes, many. You know, I do civil rights work, so that means we're talking about racial justice or racial equity a lot. And when you're surprisingly still in this day, even doing civil rights work, you may be the only Black person at the table when it comes to negotiations or just major points in the litigation, one of few or the only. And so the way that people say things, what they mean when coded language is often used, you pick up on it and you know it's happening. And so, yes, there are many moments when you realize, oh, I am the Black attorney here at the table. And do I speak up now? Do I call them on that? Do I wait till we get back to the office? Is this the moment where I need to say something? All of that happens, not daily, but often. In your work. And so it's good to have other Black attorneys or be part of professional associations where you can share those moments with people in a safe space and know how to deal with them professionally. and know or be able to talk with people who have similar experiences. So yes, that has happened, continues to happen, and have built safe spaces and groups that I can talk to about best ways to handle those times.
I don't think I can add anything better than what Jasmine just said.
For sure, for sure. I guess a student was hoping maybe one or both of you could talk about like how law school differed from undergrad, and like I guess what surprised you most about, you know, Northwestern to whatever law school you went to.
Sure. Law school was very different than undergrad in a lot of ways. Academically, there were some seminar classes, but most of the classes that I took my first year, and I think this is the case for most law schools, were kind of the large seminar style classes where you could have, you know, think of your big seminar, your big classes at Northwestern, large classes, and law schools use what's called the Socratic method. So the professors cold call on you. And they don't necessarily wait for you to raise your hand, and they go back and forth with you. So, you know, that was very nerve-wracking, I'm not gonna lie. You know, you always felt like you had to be prepared. You get a ton of reading material, and usually your grade is dependent on one exam that happens at the end. I mean, I guess that's similar to how it was in college. Maybe there was 2, or maybe there were more papers, but you know, and I would say the exams are very different as well, because you're not looking for necessarily a right answer, but you are looking for kind of what's called issue spotting. And that's kind of flagging all of the issues that you see in whatever prompt or question you're given. So it's just different. Usually when someone gives you a test, they want a specific answer. That is not the case in law school. They want to see that you can argue both sides of the problem. And so they want you to just identify as many issues as you possibly can. And that took me a minute to understand that that was what the game was. And what else was different? I mean, I just think that I eventually learned to really love law school, but when I first got there, I felt it was a little bit isolating, because you had it wasn't like undergrad where, you know, most people are coming right out of their senior year of high school. And yes, you have people from different experiences, but everyone's kind of doing the same thing. I felt, you know, very isolated and had to kind of find my community after some time. And I eventually did, and learned to love it, but there was an adjustment there as well. So I mean, it's a completely different experience, I would say. And I'll let Jasmine give her perspective if there's anything that I'm missing.
Just add, for me, because I had taken 2 years between college and law school, I found when I got to law school, it was just a different setup. I wasn't there to necessarily make friends, although I did. I was there to get my law degree. Personally, my, at the time, boyfriend, and ended up being my husband, was back in DC. So I was also in a long distance relationship. So much of my tie was back to DC, and I saw USC as, you know, I need to go here for 3 years, do well, and get a job back in DC. And because of that, and I think other people were in similar adult circumstances where it was nice to meet people, but you were a little more focused on your work because it had a straightforward goal. And so I found that law school, unlike college, was just more about the work itself and getting in and getting out. And that took some getting used to, because it's not the college setup where you are want to be in this extracurricular and that extracurricular and go with people to, you know, Norris or whatever the equivalent is. It's pretty focused for a lot of people when you're in law school. And so that does take some adjustment. And as Judge Cobb was saying, can be a little isolating in the beginning because you're getting into that groove of just a different work element. So that was different to me.
And then I guess for our final question, what are you most grateful for in terms of your experience at Northwestern?
There's a lot I'm grateful for. I think I'm grateful for the relationships and support that I made and the support that I received. I had a lot of great professor administrative mentors who I could align myself with and ask questions of. And that's really helpful to have, and to have that experience as an undergrad, and to have it coming from so many different directions. I really thought it was a place where the people who were teaching me and guiding me really wanted me to succeed. And I felt that support. And I think it's important to identify those mentors when you're there. And I had a lot of fun at Northwestern. It was a great place. Like I said, you know, I feel like I sound like my parents, but you know, there's just no time in your life where you're going to have this experience again. Even law school, which is a great experience, is not the same as college. I mean, you're just not going to have this ability to learn from the people that you're learning from, be surrounded by the people you're surrounded in, being able to focus on being a student, and growing yourself and developing yourself. And it was an amazing experience, an amazing journey. And I hope that you all are enjoying it and really taking advantage of it.
I'm grateful for the sense of community that Northwestern was able to foster. In my experience, it definitely felt like there was a distinct Black community, and we were very close-knit from the beginning, from the ritual all the way up into, you know, senior year. We knew each other. We were constantly seeing each other around campus, constantly hanging out. And that was just healthy for me. I grew up in a predominantly white suburb in New Jersey. And outside of, you know, church and some other extracurriculars, I didn't have a time where I was around so many African Americans who had similar goals as me, and it just wasn't healthy, and a really great experience. And I met people that, like I said, I still am in touch with. And then even outside of the African American community, because sometimes, you know, you need to meet other people, I felt that there were folks that had just really cool experiences and came from all over the world, quite literally, in Allison, where I lived my freshman year. For some reason, there were just a lot of international students on our floor in Allison. And so I met people from all over. Mel from Indonesia, who I'm still in contact with. She actually was out in LA when I went to law school. It's just a great community that you'll meet at Northwestern, and I'm very grateful for it.
Thank you both so much for sharing about your experiences at Northwestern. And I guess, you know, thank you so much for logging on today. And if everyone could join me in virtually thanking our alumni speakers for sharing like some really great insights with the group. Yeah, we just really appreciate getting the opportunity to speak with our panelists. And if people would keep an eye out for a follow-up email from Cassie and Joseph with the alumni information, and an email from Grubhub with your $20 credit. The Waldron Connections program typically has in-person student lunch when they attend these programs. So they're sending everyone $20 via Grubhub so everyone can buy themselves dinner. But, you know, thank you all again, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Go Cats.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.